Welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe. It's not just wanting to be remembered, it's wanting the best era of you to be remembered. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. This is Edinburgh Calling. The largest arts festival of the world is almost back up to full power. As I mentioned yesterday, traditionally the Fringe went completely dark on the Monday of week 2. That's not the case now. There are some shows that carry on in week 2 on the Monday and they take the Tuesday off. So while the majority of the shows are going to be back in today, assuming they're doing a full run, of course, some of the shows again will be dark. So it is still check listings for details. I mean, it's good advice to go through. Sometimes the venues will put on an extra show or move them up to a larger room. Any of the shows we mentioned here, you can find it on the official website, edfringe.com, but we will give you direct links into the box office to save you going through their delightfully streamlined search engine at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. Today on the podcast, Leo Hincks, who is debuting an hour at the Fringe, inspired not by an actor, in this case James Dean, but by an actor's line, hence the show Emotional Cowboy. It's a show within a show that is a debut comedy hour. So it kind of inceptions the same thing into itself. And in the Inception show, Hincks realises that it may be too much and he's bitten off more than he can chew. So he has to take a substance and change gears and put on another show inside the show, which is a serious play about serious things for serious people, which is one of the best titles I've heard of a not a Fringe show at the Fringe in some time. Finding that right show, much like finding the right place in your life, is not as easy as the description in the Fringe guide would have you believe. And once we move back up all of the levels, that's what Leo has brought to the Fringe. We talk about sharing his old notes and journals on Instagram to look backwards and to look forwards, updating pop cultural references to align with the current trends and move away from the jokes that may no longer land, and how to set expectations for Edinburgh and the coming of age show. Joining me now, it's Leo Hincks. Welcome to the show, Leo.
Hello, hi.
With the show Emotional Cowboy. It's an impressive title that we can go in many directions from. Where shall we go?
I think the first direction is just to explain where I got it from, because it's a line in a song by the singer Wise Blood, who not everyone knows, but she's doing a BBC Proms in September, so she's clearly good enough. And she's referring to the actor James Dean, and she calls him an emotional cowboy. I just loved the line so much, and it really stuck with me. And I would sort of write it like on my Instagram bio to seem kind of cool. This was a few years ago, but I always loved the name. It just really stuck out to me. And I got quite interested in wearing cowboy clothes, etc. When I turned 20 to kind of try and reinvent myself. And I just kind of felt really attached to this phrase emotional cowboy, and when I decided to do a one-man show and I was trying to think of the title, I was like, of course it has to be this. And it does connect to the rest of the show. The show does involve me sort of becoming quite emotional, so I think it does perfectly encapsulate the sort of chaotic nature of the show.
I love the idea that you've been driven not by an actor but by an actor's line.
Yeah, I just found it interesting. I was like, yeah, I guess he is this kind of possibly quite queer-coded actor who died quite young. He's sort of this Emotional Cowboy kind of makes him sort of feel like this kind of myth and legend. And yeah, it just really connected to me. So yeah.
How how important was it to redefine yourself in your 20 coming into your 20s?
I'd say it was sort of like essential. I mean, I talk about it in the show, wearing the cowboy clothes. I actually, although I'm a huge film fan, I would say Wild West films aren't my go-to genre. So I sort of wear these, tassel jackets and bootcut jeans and cowboy boots. But it's kind of like wearing a band t-shirt of a band that, you're not that too familiar with, but you like their artwork. So I think if anyone sort of came up to me on the street and asked me, what my favorite cowboy film is, I'd probably struggle a little bit. I mean, I'd probably say Midnight Cowboy anyways, but that's not even a Western. But yeah, I'd say the cowboy clothes in the show do represent this sort of idea of trying to come across as authentically cool and sort of struggling in the process in quite a comedic way, obviously, but also in quite a way that I think a lot of the audience sort of have related to this idea of trying to create a version of themselves that they want to then look back on in, a few decades and be like, oh, one of my many personalities. But in reality, it's more of this slightly insincere effort to do that.
So why bring it on stage then?
I think it just sort of felt, I mean, it sounds pretentious, but it sort of felt like the clear next step in sort of processing my 20s is to sort of let everyone else see it. I mean, it's quite a popular genre, anyways, the sort of struggling in your 20s. Like, I'm such a big fan of like all those coming of age, like The Graduate or Frances Ha, or like recently, like with Girls, Lena Dunham, like all of these sort of stories of being in your 20s and not exactly being super likable, but still somewhat relatable and sort of trying to figure out who you are. And so I was doing stand up for 2 or 3 years before I decided to do the show. And it just sort of felt like I mean, in my stand up sets, I'd sort of play an exaggerated version of myself, this sort of narcissistic actor slash comedian. And that was really fun to do in these sort of 10-minute sets. But with the show, I could sort of feel like I could go beyond just the like classic narcissist archetype and sort of relate it more back to myself. And I think it also was because I sort of post my notes app, my journal, on my Instagram story just for my close friends. I'd post entries that I'd written a few years ago, and people found it hilarious. I mean, they would be notes apps of me sort of being like, oh, I hate myself, I'm not cool enough. And like, people found that really funny because they were like, that's exactly how I used to think. And it felt like the end of the world at that moment. But now it's just this kind of funny thing to look back on. So that's a really big element of the show, the sort of notes app. And I do include it in the actual show.
So the show itself you wrote in 2024,
Yes.
but only deciding to bring it up to Edinburgh this year.
Yeah, so I was in my final year of university when I did the show, and it was kind of, I mean, I always say like it was kind of just meant for me and my friends, but that's not the truth because I did do it at a theatre where other people did come, and I do believe it's more than just an inside joke. But I wanted to do the show. I was in Bristol and I wanted to do it there before I left to go back to London. And after I did it, I realized that it wasn't just going to be a one-time thing. I did want to keep going at it and sort of changing it about and stuff. So I then did it about like 6 months later in London at the White Bear Theatre. And that was really fun. I did 2 nights there instead of one. And some people saw it and at Intertalent Comedy, and they've sort of helped me bring it up to Fringe because I did want to take it to Fringe, but I didn't want to just do it straight away. I wanted to feel a bit more confident with the show, which I do now. But yeah, so I'm excited to bring it up this year.
It's a show about coming of age and identity, and you've now been performing it for 2 years, and it's 2 years in terms of like career and growth that can really shape a performer. So Is it still the same show?
It is like the basic skeleton of it. Yes, it's completely the same show. I do feel like pretty much the same person who wrote it. But now that I've been sort of post grad, I think there is a lot more of that sort of energy about like after leaving university because that was already a big theme of anxiety in the show. But now that I've actually done it a year out, there is a lot more on that sort of tedious sort of area of my life where I'm not quite the the romanticized idea of the student. I'm now post grad. So it is an interesting element in it. And I would also say the show is very pop culture heavy. And that means every time I do it, I have to change like a billion different lines because I no longer think they're culturally relevant or anything. So yeah, the script changes pretty much every time I do it just to feel sort of with the times.
What's been the favourite bit of pop culture joke that you've had to drop then?
I've had to drop. I would say in the original one, I sort of do this. It was February, so it was around the time of sort of awards season and the Oscars, and I did this sort of in the show. There is a moment where I say to the audience, I think we should maybe see me do some impressions and see if there's any potential in those kind of impressions. And I did an impression of the film Anora, which I now think if I did, people wouldn't. I don't think, I mean, it's a great film, but I don't think it's become this like quotable, iconic meme film. I think it was just sort of quite big at the awards season. So I've sort of changed the impression bit quite a lot. But the purpose of that impression is to sort of have me choosing something that's a bit more of a niche impression and then getting annoyed at the audience that they're not quite getting how great the impression is. So yeah, I did have to drop Anora, which I do think was probably a good idea in the long run.
The show itself, of course, has yourself on stage, but you're not alone in terms of performance.
Yeah, so I mean I was so intimidated at the concept of a one-man show because I thought, oh, no one wants to sort of see me like 10 minutes, sure, but 50 minutes to an hour is just like people have lives, they don't need to see me for that long moaning. So I wanted it to kind of feel like it had a sort of cast within itself because I got my friends to do sort of voice lines for the show, sort of being different characters. There's a moment when my friend plays Graham Norton when I'm on the Graham Norton show, and I also lend my voice. But my favorite voice in it, for sure, is from comedian Leo Reich, who I did when I did the Chortle Comedy Awards in my sort of review from Chortle, they said that my only downside to my performance was that I was too similar to my namesake, Leo Reich. And I sort of use that in the show as this thing that I feel really insecure about and crazy about. And I sort of pretend I have no idea who Leo Reich is. And then I got him to do a voice in the show, sort of telling me to leave him alone, which was really amazing. It was definitely one of the most exciting things that's happened to me because I just messaged him on Instagram, kind of expecting it to go in his sort of requests folder. But he responded and did the line, and it makes the show feel so much bigger than it is. And yeah, I'm just really happy with that specific line.
What about getting ready for Edinburgh? This is quite a big festival up here, and there's a lot of advice from every single angle and beyond out there. How have you prepared yourself?
I don't think I have prepared myself, and I'm actually okay with that. I've been sort of told just take it easy, have loads of ginger shots. I'm not expecting it to be this smooth sailing month where I get there and it sells out and the rest is history. I'm sort of expecting it to be this kind of weird roller coaster, and I'm excited for that, to be honest. I mean, doing this after a year of sort of post grad, I'm excited to like put my teeth into something. I kind of would compare me going to Fringe like other people sort of going traveling and trying ayahuasca. Like this is my equivalent to that. I think. So I'm sort of just going to take it how it goes. And I'm sure, I mean, I sort of say to my friends, like, oh, I'm expecting some bad days. But I can kind of imagine myself in the future being like, you have no idea how bad it can get. But I'm excited for that. I mean, it's all experience. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sort of the surprises, really.
What about in the show? Is there any bit in the show that you particularly go, this is the bit I really enjoy?
I would say my favorite bit of the show is basically so throughout the show, I'm kind of trying to get the audience to take me seriously, which is hard as a comedian because they're constantly laughing. But I sort of want myself to be this comedian slash actor and sort of be taken seriously when I want to. And there's a moment sort of halfway through the show where I've taken this liquid, which is a parody of the substance, which I did keep in because I think the substance people still enjoy and people still reference. So there is a big sort of substance sequence where I take this liquid and I transform into my idea of what a serious actor is. And I sort of leave stage and I get fully changed. I wear like blue light glasses because that's what I think a really serious actor would wear. And I do this serious monologue, which is me talking about doing a serious monologue. And I go through all these different states of what I think makes an actor look cool, like holding a cigarette on stage and having a prop drink and doing a dance for no reason and sort of breaking the fourth wall and crying to the audience. And it's just a really fun sort of sequence to do because it's quite different to the rest of the show and it really allows me to sort of face the audience and sort of play this sort of game with them. So yeah, I really enjoy that. It's where the show sort of takes a beat and goes into this weird sort of dream of what I think a really cool, serious monologue would be. So yeah, that's definitely, I'd say, my favorite bit.
So the show itself, tell us when it's on.
So it's on from the 5th to the 31st of August at the Gilded Balloon Teviot in the Turret.
And people outside of Edinburgh, where can they find out more about you?
So they can follow my Instagram, which is Leo Hincks, Hincks, for those listening, and my TikTok, Leo H Comedy, which sounds quite cringe to say out loud, but it is a comedy account. That's where they can sort of see me attempt to sort of be funny for every 2 days, I would say. I'd post something to try and make people laugh.
We will have links back to all of those, the Instagrams, the socials, and straight into the box office for the show Emotional Cowboy back on our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. You kind of hinted to it there, but let's go back to it just to close out. When you look back on this show, what are you expecting to see in 10, 15, 20 years' time?
I think I will view the work the sort of same way I do view my old sort of notes app journal entries, which is sort of like this feeling of, oh, that's so stupid. Like, I can't believe you thought that was where it's at. But also this element of, oh, this is really sweet. Like this did mean a lot. So I do think the show is good, but I do think I do have a tendency to sort of reflect back anything that's over 3 years old to sort of be sort of not what I think is great at the moment, which is why I'm so obsessed with pop culture.
Yeah, you still have James Dean at the absolute heart of all of this. Leo, it's been a delight to talk. Thanks very much for the time and good luck with the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Leo Hincks talking about his show Emotional Cowboy. Plays the Gilded Balloon Teviot's Turret. And for those of you who are popping into the Fringe and are aware of what Gilded Balloon TV used to look like, it has changed. The outside is the same. All the inside theatre spaces all different. Give yourself another 5 minutes just to be sure of what's going on. Anyway, Gilded Balloon TV Turret at 3:50 p.m. He's had his day off now, so it is right through until August the 31st. Tickets available through the box office and at Gilded Balloon box office, and also links at our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com, where we'll also have links to Leo's Instagram and TikTok. And wherever you're listening out there, Let's do the social media pray again. Please like, love, share, and subscribe. If you can leave a star rating or a thumbs up, that would be great as well. It helps more people find the podcast. It lifts us up the search engines, and it gives us a little bit of feedback here in the production offices. Guess what? The Fringe is still going. That means I got to go out into Edinburgh once more and see what I can bring you tomorrow. But for now, ta-ra. Listening to the Edinburgh Fringe Show, hosted by Ewan Spence, produced by Spence Media for the Podcast Corner. Listen to more from the Fringe at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com.